Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us. Constable Andre Johnson, feel free to go ahead.
Good evening. Thank you for attending our Community Education and Engagement Night. We will start off by providing you with some information on our body-worn video and in-car video pilot project, which is part of the Waterloo Regional Police Service's overall modernization project. We will then answer any questions you may have. Please submit your questions or comments via our social media platforms, and we will try our best to answer them all. We will begin tonight with some opening remarks from Chief Larkin. Chief?
Thank you so much, Andre. Hello and good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us virtually tonight to learn more about our body-worn and in-car camera technology. Tomorrow, we'll officially launch this pilot project, which includes the deployment of 70 body-worn videos and 40 in-car video systems that will operate out of our North Division, as well as our Traffic Services Unit. The deployment of body-worn video and in-car camera technology provides the potential and enhanced transparency and accountability for all police interactions, as well as this focus of this project will also be on member and community perceptions, the administrative workload, as well as the judicial system impacts. The pilot project will run from June 2021, officially launching tomorrow, to December 2021. This will also provide an opportunity for our service to evaluate the feasibility of gathering video evidence while also balancing the right to privacy for all community members. I want to thank and take a moment to recognize all of the members of our special projects team that has pulled this together for all their hard work over the past several months to ensure the successful launch of this project. I'm very pleased to turn it over to Superintendent Shayna Morris, who's been instrumental in leading this project team. Thanks for all your work, Shayna, and over to you.
Thank you so much, Chief. I'll just prepare my presentation for you now. Okay. So thank you so much for joining us for our community education presentation on body-worn video and in-car video. As you may already know from previous presentations, that this is part of our larger scale modernization project. And that project has 4 elements to it. First, body-worn video, in-car video, our digital evidence management system, we refer to as the DEMS, and our mobile smartphone deployment strategy. Our presentation tonight will really just focus on body-worn video and in-car video for the most part. Some background on our community for you, very briefly, that we have an approximate population of 630,000 people. And also, Waterloo Regional Police Service is the 6th largest police service in Ontario. And that is significant because when we're looking at providing modernized policing services to such a large-scale community as a whole. So that's just a little bit about who we are as a community here. So when we get into our body-worn and in-car video pilot, as the Chief mentioned, this was approved by our board in 2021 to run a pilot for the few months until the end of December for 2021. And the purpose is to determine the feasibility and the ability to capture evidence while balancing individual privacy rights. Some of the key performance indicators that we'll be looking at include community and member perceptions, administrative workload, and also charge and conviction impacts. Also, as the Chief mentioned, we're going live tomorrow, June 1st, with 70 body-worn video systems that will be deployed out of our North Division and 40 in-car video systems split between North Division and also our traffic branch. The pilot will continue until the end of 2021. And at that point, our findings and evaluation will be presented to the board, our Police Services Board, in the fall for a decision on future investment. Part of our pilot involves stakeholder engagement and consultation with our community. We'll be conducting our frequent partner consultation starting this month after the launch of our pilot. We have several objectives we're hoping to accomplish with the body-worn and in-car video systems. They include enhancing police accountability, capturing accurate records of police interactions with the public, enhancing public safety and officer safety, strengthening our commitment to bias-free service delivery, improving evidence for investigative, judicial, and oversight purposes. That includes provincial and criminal courts, and it also includes the SIU. We're also looking at fair and timely resolutions of complaints and for feedback on our effectiveness in our procedures, the development of our procedures, and the development of our own internal training. Very important in any type of body-worn and in-car video program are privacy considerations. And so we are addressing privacy concerns. First, though, we recognize that body-worn video and in-car video systems need to balance individual privacy rights with service delivery needs of our service. And we have developed internal procedures, and they align with the model governance framework for police body-worn cameras in Ontario, and that was developed by the Information and Privacy Commissioner of Ontario. And we also recognize that clear procedures really ensure proper, consistent, and credible use of body-worn and in-car video technology. Further, for us to address privacy concerns, we have initiated a privacy impact assessment, and that is to assess our compliance with the Municipal Freedom of Information and Privacy Act, otherwise known as MFIPA. And this assessment focuses on the collection, use, retention, disclosure, security, and disposal of personal information for both of these technology systems. It also helps us identify actual or potential effects that either of these video systems may have on an individual's privacy. So now we'll talk more about our procedures and give you some highlights of what our procedures actually say. So in general, for recording, it's important that we note that this body-worn system, body-worn camera and video, and in-car video, their intention is only to capture investigative and enforcement activities. It's not for general surveillance. That's the biggest piece of this we want you to know. It's not intended for 24-hour recording. It's important that we balance the public demand for video and accurate capturing of public interactions with officers with some fiscal responsibility, because there are storage costs every time we're putting any of this data into our cloud. And it's important that we record the totality of any interaction once we do start recording. As well, officers are not allowed to obstruct the lens or hide the camera except in certain circumstances, and those include protecting the dignity of another person related to nudity or states of undress. It includes medical care. It also includes cultural or religious considerations. And if an officer finds themselves in a situation in the above where they are required to obstruct the lens, there are a few important pieces that they must follow as well. And that is, they have to keep the obstruction to the briefest time possible. They're not allowed to mute the audio. They need to keep the audio going. And that is so they can also record the reason why verbally on the device itself, why it was obstructed. And they also need to make a record in their notebook stating the reason for the obstruction. As well, in general, officers shall not be recording during worship, religious, or spiritual ceremonies without consent, unless it is required for an investigative purpose. And as well, we will not be recording at a healthcare facility except in a situation where an officer has a person in custody who is either being treated or they're waiting for healthcare treatment, but the officer is actually alone with that person, or they believe that the person they have in their custody requires or soon might require some type of intervention or de-escalation. And then, of course, there are exigent circumstances potentially where an officer may need to record at a healthcare facility. There is a notice of recording that's required. So at the earliest opportunity, an officer equipped with a body-worn or in-car video system needs to notify anyone directly involved with their purpose that the video is recording. As well, upon entering a private place, an officer needs to request consent to record from the owner or the occupier of that place. They also need to advise that person that they have the right to refuse, and they also need to make sure that they give them reasonable opportunity to refuse to be recorded in a private place. However, if an officer is there because they're executing a warrant or they're there under exigent circumstances, there may be a time where they might have to record in a private place. So when an officer will be recording, it really comes down to two things. The first one, when they're dispatched to a call, and so they'll start the recording prior to arriving at the call for service. And the second one is when the officer themselves initiates any kind of investigative or enforcement contact with a member of the public. There are specific circumstances where officers are not to record, and they include any policing activities that are not investigative or enforcement in nature. That would be directing traffic would be one example. Officers are not to record whenever they're conducting a strip search. They're not to record any administrative conversations that are not related to investigative and enforcement purposes, and that would be within a police facility or even within a police vehicle. They are not to record when the information captured would endanger the life or the physical safety of any person, as well as not to record in a courthouse, as we already spoke about, or Indigenous religious spiritual ceremonies, and also in a hospital, except when exigencies exist or as outlined in procedure, which we have just recently gone over. There are certain times when an officer will be allowed to stop recording once they've started, and that would include entering a washroom or entering a police facility. As well, they are allowed to mute their microphone when they're talking about protected investigative techniques, and an officer is allowed to obstruct the lens of the camera if they are protecting the dignity of another person that they're dealing with. We do have some supervisor responsibilities to ensure accountability, and that's built into our procedure. And so supervisors are required to review a recording from each body-worn video and in-car video equipped officer at a minimum of once per month. And that's for the following reasons: to ensure that officers using devices, that they're using them in accordance with the procedure. It's to make sure that they may need to determine that there's additional training requirements from the officer. And they also may be reviewing the recordings wherever applicable to assist in the resolution of a public complaint. So we've talked about procedures and privacy pieces that are related to body worn and in-car video, but there are a few circumstances that are specific just to in-car video. And so in-car video will be used to capture impaired driving, traffic stops, pursuits, sobriety tests, screening device demands related to impaired driving or potential impaired driving, any statement that's normally taken in the field now by an officer. It'll be very valuable for any time we're dealing with a prisoner that's in one of our police vehicles or conducting a transport of any prisoner. For searches, but that would only be for frisk searches only. Strip searches are not to be recorded at any time. In-car video will be activated for any type of roadside release. And as you may know, we've been really moving towards a model of releasing people more frequently on the roadside instead of putting them through the court system overnight. And really any investigative interaction is another time when an officer would activate their in-car video. There are some built-in security measures for body-worn and in-car video. And just some background on our DEMS system. The Ministry of the Solicitor General invested in this cloud-based technology, and that was so we would be able to store digital evidence province-wide in a standardized format, and that allows us to connect across the province with other criminal justice system partners, whether that's through the court system or with other police agencies. And these systems have controls that govern wrongful access and inappropriate use. So some of the important measures to note about the security, and of course this is not a full list, but it includes the highlights. Body-worn and in-car video recordings, they're encrypted when they're captured in the device themselves. The recordings cannot be edited, altered, or deleted from the device at any time. They're secured and encrypted during the uploading that occurs from the video to the storage system. They have security authentication steps built in place to ensure that only those with authorized access can actually view the recordings once they're uploaded. And it will be there will be a development of automatic purging of videos based on established retention schedules. The financial impacts of this pilot. The service has $450,000 of budget money that has been set aside and made available for this pilot program. However, we're very happy to note that as of now, we have used $159,000. Then that amount has been committed against this project to date. So next steps for this project include the deployment strategy, as the chief mentioned. We will be going live tomorrow with our in-car video out of North Division. We'll be continuing with our privacy assessments throughout the remaining length of time of this pilot. We will be conducting evaluation and workload analysis within our own divisions piloting this. We have already conducted some pre-membership surveys, but we'll continue to survey our members throughout the entire pilot to make sure that we capture their views and feedback. And we will be doing the same with the public and our community as a whole through our stakeholder and community engagement events. And we'll be posting surveys and gathering feedback during the duration of this pilot. And now I'll turn it over to Constable Johnson for any questions. Thank you.
Information this evening. We hope those joining us found it useful. We will now open it up to some questions, and a reminder to everyone who's watching that you can share your questions by typing them in the comment section on social media. We have our first question of the evening, and Superintendent Morris, I will direct this one to you. First question is, how can you ensure the privacy of someone who may be recorded?
Ensuring the privacy? Well, the officers have received training on privacy. They've been told and they're aware that privacy is one of the biggest risks for them in this. So really, we are notifying any person that we're speaking with or interacting with that we're recording. And the bigger piece about this is there are redaction tools and vetting tools. So no video would be ever released publicly or within the court system without redacting any type of information, whether that's blurring faces out, removing audio, those types of things. So we have a lot of tools, thankfully, in the system. It's quite advanced that allow us to protect privacy that way.
Great, thank you. We have another question that just came in. And can you explain how videos are saved on a cloud?
Certainly. So the officer, during their entire course of their shift, they either have a body-worn video on or they have their in-car video. The video is stored in the device itself during their shift. And as soon as they either come into the station with their body-worn video or with their in-car video, they'll either dock their camera into the system with the body-worn, and it'll upload through an encrypted way that I was speaking about earlier up into the cloud automatically, or it'll offload through secure Wi-Fi in the parking lot of the division when the vehicle rolls in.
Great. Another question here. How accessible would the footage be for third parties in civil lawsuits?
So it would follow the same process that we have right now with our Access to Information Office that deals with privacy. That is their expertise. A request would need to be made through that office. They will do their usual checks and balances in the Freedom of Information release, follow the legislation, and it would be no different than accessing any other type of material that we currently have.
And Superintendent, this question kind of ties into the last one. This one from a citizen who's asking, if a citizen wishes to see a video of an incident, is this request honored?
Well, it would depend on the type of incident and when the request is made. So there is a provision in the procedure right now that officers are allowed to do a playback and show a person who is directly involved in an incident part of the video that applies that for whatever reason they may need to see it. If, though, it falls under an access to information piece, then that would have to go through the regular channels, just like any other police report.
Great, thank you. Lots of questions pouring in. Please keep them coming. This next question is from Alex, who asks, what steps will be taken to ensure indirect video and audio recordings are not used to capture non-criminal data that can be mined?
Okay, well, our system, our digital evidence management system is set that, number one, an officer is only recording anything, just to remember or remind people, it's only recording an investigative or enforcement purpose. When the information is stored in our digital evidence management system, it will eventually have a retention category tied to it. Right now, it's set for 30 months. If it's not required for a court proceeding or any other civil type of proceeding, it will be deleted automatically after 30 months. If it's required for anything else, it will be kept in our secure storage for the duration required as by the legislation for our normal retention schedules.
Thank you. Another question here. This one is from Mariah. Mariah's asking, can anyone hack into these cameras?
No, so the devices themselves are encrypted. So an officer lost one or, excuse me, anything happened in that way, they're not able to access any of the data inside. It's completely encrypted.
Awesome. And this question is from Chris. I think we have a couple questions from Chris, but we'll start with this one. What would happen if a person refuses to allow the encounter to be videotaped?
That's a great question. So certainly, like I spoke about, if we're in a private place and that person is the owner or occupier of the private place, they have the ability to say that they do not want to be recorded. However, outside of that, in a public setting, as long as the officer is following the procedure correctly and it's for an investigative enforcement purpose, the officer has the ability to continue recording.
And this question, again, kind of ties into this last one, Superintendent. So if I am recorded, and am I allowed to ask that it be deleted?
Excuse me. If you're being recorded, once again, it would be for an investigative or enforcement purpose. The video will be kept for 30-month period in our system. Certainly the person could go through the access to information branch and ask to view the video if they needed to, but there really isn't a circumstance that somebody would be able to have their video deleted. It would be required to be stored with our retention guidelines.
And this seems to be a follow-up question for this one. What if I'm just in the area and a video records me?
Yes. And that may happen. Like I said, though, this system comes with some very savvy redaction tools. So we have a team of experts that we've assembled. Their specific job is to make sure that any video that is being disclosed for court purposes or any other purpose, that a series of redaction techniques are applied to it. They have a list of incidents when that would be required, such as anything with a sensitive nature to it. We need to protect the privacy of an individual, a citizen, just like the person said, anybody standing that's unrelated to whatever is being disclosed in court. So that team, that is their sole duty, actually. And so they are the experts in making sure that it doesn't. And the other piece is, on the other side, once it gets disclosed, the Crown attorneys have their own vetting team in place as well, and they double check our work before a video goes anywhere into the court process.
Great. Thank you, Superintendent. It seems like we might give you a break for a second here and
Okay.
bring in Chief Larkin. Chief, this question is from Debbie. And Debbie would like to know, why does WRPS feel they need this body-worn video and in-car video? And how do you think we will benefit from it?
Well, thanks so much, Debbie, for the question. And it's really a multitude of reasons. I'll speak first to the in-car camera and why we want to pilot in-car camera. Within the last 12 months, the release procedures of how we manage those that come in contact with policing have changed immensely. Where previously we used to bring a number of people to our police divisions into our prisoner care and control facilities, which are all audio and video recorded and have been since the mid-1990s. Now police officers have the ability to release at the side of the roadway in many ways. And so the police cruiser has become in very much the continued mobile office, but the rear of the police vehicles is really becoming the releasing station. And so we want to ensure that we capture all the information that is occurring, and as well as the release, and making sure that it's properly documented as we roll through, very similar to what we would do at our prisoner care and control facilities across the region. So we do feel that the in-car camera will assist, but it will also assist in much of the work that we're doing around road safety, in looking at violations and looking at driver behavior, etc., which should have a long-term judicial impact. And so do we spend less or more time in courts because the digital evidence supplements the officer's account and witness to what transpired or the allegation of road safety? The body-worn video has been something, really a question in policing for about the last decade. It's been used extensively in the United Kingdom as well as in America. But more importantly, we've been looking at this technology, particularly over the last couple of years, as to how will it actually allow us to look at police interactions with our community members? How will it allow us to actually resolve public complaints and allegations of police misconduct, and to the long-term goal of building transparency, accountability, as well as expediting some of these processes, which often take a long time. We're also very interested in the outcome of judicial implications. Again, as Superintendent Morris has alluded, these cameras are only activated when we're investigating a criminal and or enforcement-related offense. And so we're hoping that digital evidence will also bring some clarity to our judicial process and assist with seeing democracy through. And so these are the varieties of reasons why we think it's important. We've also heard over the last 12 months from our community that they're looking to enhance trust and accountability and oversight into policing. And we do believe that this project does provide that, as well as actually assist our officers with their investigations and the work that they do. So again, Debbie, thanks for the question. And that's why it's important for us to hear from you. We want to hear about your perceptions, your observations. And so we will be continually surveying the community, as well as equally internally, we'll be surveying the members that are involved in this pilot project. So thanks so much, Debbie.
And another question here, is there facial recognition involved in this technology?
Great question. No, there is not. The video technology does not automatically identify individuals using this, and nor does it compare any images to a database at all.
Great, thank you. We have another question. This one's from Alex. And what is the feeling among the officers and constables about using this technology? Alex says that he would imagine, or they would imagine that they would, or they should be hugely positive that it would prove the good work that officers do.
That's another really good question. The feeling really right now is actually a bit mixed. And so just like you, probably, and some members of the community are concerned about their privacy, the officers are also concerned about their own personal privacy when using the camera technology. They are excited, though. They know that this is about modernizing, and they're interested as well themselves to try it out and get comfortable with it and see how it can benefit everybody. So there's a little bit of a mixed reaction. Most are excited, but there certainly is some apprehension as well.
This question is from Patty. As in many MFIPA requests, third-party names are redacted. Is there a method of blocking out a third party, i.e. someone present but not a...
Yes. And so our access to information branch, we have members in there who have been trained on redacting. They understand how it works, and that is their full-time job, is ensuring that any type of information like that is not released, and they're very good at ensuring that they're following the act itself when releasing anything. So like I mentioned earlier, there's a lot of tools with this software that allows us to ensure that we completely redact, whether it's blacking out completely, drawing a black square, it's blurring, and that goes for audio, not just video as well.
That's great. Thank you for the question, Patty. Here's another question. Firstly, thank you for taking the time to present to us today. When officers do stop video recording and/or audio recording, are there forms, aside from their duty books, officers will have to complete to document this?
There are no forms, but there are procedures that they're required to follow. So it's laid out very clearly in the procedure that if an officer stops a recording during an incident that they're actually recording, that they are, as I mentioned earlier, they're to make a note audibly on the device where they say, I'm stopping this recording because of X, Y, and Z. They're also required to log it into their notebook. But as far as forms, no, definitely not any forms. I will say, though, that this, our supervisors, as you saw through my presentation, the supervisors have been given a fair amount of accountability to hold their own members accountable in here. So they will be reviewing the footage and cross-checking any type of recording that's stopped with notes in the notebook, and also looking for making sure that they're following it.
And this is a follow-up to that question. Will officers be audited to confirm they are using their body cameras?
Yes, definitely they will be. And that's one really great piece of this. The auditing capability of this system is incredible. And so, like I said earlier, we have supervisory built-in auditing for use from our supervisors, and also our media disclosure unit will be being able to see if people are following procedure, but also we have great auditing capabilities to know what has happened inside the system. You can see who's entered it, how long we've looked at it, anything like that.
And what training will officers undergo before using these?
So we've already had training delivered to the officers. So to a select group of officers from the manufacturer themselves. That's just based on the hardware. We have done internal training on the procedures and making sure that officers are comfortable and completely understand the procedure. I mean, there isn't a whole lot in terms of the technology. It's very simple. It's turning it on and off. It's knowing when to activate the recording, deactivate, how to mute. So they were trained on that. And then, like I said, quite an intensive session on the procedures and how to use it and the expectations of the officers if they don't use it properly.
Great, thank you. Still a lot of great questions coming in. Just a reminder to those who are watching that you can send your questions in by typing in the comments section. This question is around procedures. And is there a procedure that will be made publicly?
Yes, we have committed to providing an abridged version of our procedure publicly. That will be forthcoming quite soon. It'll be available with all of the other information that we'll be posting as well related to this.
And I'll just take another moment to bring the chief in for this next question, so you can take a break, Superintendent. Chief, what would determine the success of this pilot project?
Well, thanks, Andre. I mean, the success is really determined on feedback from our community, as well as feedback from our membership. We will encourage everybody to go to our website at wrps.on.ca. The survey will be posted live tomorrow. We'll be gauging that throughout the entire process. And also, we'll also be surveying our membership, those that are using both the body-worn video and the in-car cameras, for their feedback. Does it assist in their daily routines? Does it assist various other areas, including our court unit, etc.? But one of the big pieces around this too is, what's the impact on our judicial system? So do we see a reduction in court time? Do we see a reduction in charter violations? Do we see an increase in convictions within our court system? And equally also around one of the key pieces we want to look at is, do we enhance public transparency? Do we enhance public confidence? Do we enhance oversight and accountability in policing in the eyes of our citizens and our community? I think that that's very important. And so there's a myriad of different pieces that will determine the success, but the community's voice will have a big voice in that overall, as well as our internal membership. Again, I want to highlight, this is a pilot project. We want to look, experience, examine, look at promising practices both internally and externally, as well as share the findings with other police agencies across the province that continues to use this technology. And so it's really part of our modernization. It's a really part of a larger strategy as we look to the future of policing. It's ever evolving and ever changing, and our community is demanding that. And so we must look at these types of projects.
Thank you, Chief. This next question, Superintendent, I'll send this one to you. This one's from Lori. Will police be allowed to film impaired, dangerous, or stunt drivers?
Yes, definitely will. And we hope that they can use that as evidence, like the chief alluded to, in court. That would be one of the positive byproducts for us for any of the in-car video systems that we're piloting.
And a follow-up question to that, is there any point in time where video would be released to the media?
There is a provision in the procedure for the release of video to the media. However, as many are aware, our system in Canada is very different than the United States. We have oversight bodies and a lot of governance that way. So we are very much restricted by legislation on what can be released to the public. But there certainly is a provision in the procedure that does allow the chief the opportunity and the ability to release video in compelling interest cases for the public.
Great, thank you. This question is from Tara. Tara is asking, is there any ability to view the video in exigent circumstances prior to uploading onto the dock or in real time?
Yes, actually there is, and that's part of the modernization project as a whole. I spoke earlier about our smartphone strategy deployment. So officers across the region, frontline patrol officers, have all been issued a smartphone. And there certainly is an ability for an officer to view the video in an exigent circumstance. If they needed to, they can access it via Bluetooth from their phone.
Great. And we have a question from Alex. And Chief, this one will be for you. What are the greatest hurdles you see in rolling out this trial and extending it to the force at a large?
Well, thanks, Alex, and thank for the question. I think there's a number of hurdles that we look at, rolling it out in the trial, but to the larger police service. One, I think, is Superintendent Morris alluded to, and that's the balancing and looking at the privacy impact that not only on our members but on our community. There's lots of questions around that, and so how do we actually, manage and ensure that our members feel a sense of privacy, so that when they're out there doing the work, that they're not caught inadvertently recording, etc. And likewise too, a member of the community. And so I think that balancing that privacy is a significant hurdle. Balancing the expectations of the community. So we live in a world of immediacy, and so I think that there'll be some natural thought processes that will be able to evaluate this, in a short period of time. We have a 6-month time frame that we want to put a lot of effort into, a lot of measurement. We want to make sure that we get this right. And one of the hurdles there may be, externally, the expectation of our community to act faster, to move the project along quicker, and that equally is internally as well. There are some members, as Sheena alluded to, that are really excited for this, others that not so much, and so there's a change management theory as we roll through here. I think the other hurdle is adjusting this up within our court systems. Our judicial system, although it's grown significantly during the pandemic around digital evidence and digital evidence management, we still live in a traditional democracy where a lot of paper-based presentations and court documents, and so we're trying to modernize that. That will be a significant hurdle. And finally, the other hurdle will be managing the financial implications. Technology does come at a cost. This project right now is under budget and moving along very well, but cloud storage and the way that we manage the infrastructure of our information technology, and to ensure the safety, encryption, all of these things do add financial implications. And I think that will be one of the hurdles if we look to rolling this out as a permanent project, is how do we manage the financial implications on our service, on our community, and how do we prioritize this project in comparison to all the other modernization projects that are ongoing. So thank you for the question, Alex, and thanks for participating this evening.
Superintendent Morris, I'll direct this question to you. Will officers be able to watch the video whenever they want to, or to show it to whomever they want to?
Yeah, that is a good question. So officers are guided by their procedure, and in the procedure, there's actually a specific reference to this. So officers will be allowed to watch the video. However, they are required by procedure to complete their notes first. So if they're going to an event, an incident they're dealing with, they need to finish the incident. They need to do their notes just as they have prior to June 1st. When they're finished their notes, they are allowed by procedure to go back through and review the video. They are to record the time and the fact that they did review it in their notebook. However, that is completely tracked through the audit trail in the system regardless. But they also need to make any notes that of any discrepancies that they noticed in the video based on their own independent observations of the incident. And we know from lots of research and just how the human body works that the camera is certainly, in the video technology, is going to be capturing pieces of the event that the officers are just not going to be able to capture with their own human eye when there's a lot going on. So they're required to just go through and note any discrepancies there. And as far as sharing the video, we have controls in place once it's been uploaded, especially into our cloud-based system. There are restrictions in place on who can see the video and when. It's outlined in procedure. They are not allowed to access each other's video. So frontline officers will not be able to go into any other frontline officer's video at any time and access it. They actually need to have permission. It needs to be shared, and that is all tracked and auditable in the system. However, if, just like the person who asked earlier about exigencies, if they're allowed to look at the video, if there was an exigent circumstance where they were dealing with something that may have been captured on video that happened so quickly and they need to review it for description of the person they're looking for, they have the ability, like I said, with their phone to go back for a quick moment and have a look through. That also is completely auditable and captured and recorded as well.
And Superintendent, I know that you talked about the digital evidence management system in your presentation. This question seems to be in line with that. How do you share the information with the court system?
So the province of Ontario, the Administrative Solicitor General, they are, as I spoke about earlier, they are the drivers in bringing the digital evidence management system to police services across the province. We're very proud in Waterloo because we are one of the first adopters in taking this technology forward. And so the Solicitor General has been working with our Crown partners across the province as well to develop a system that allows us to seamlessly share the information back and forth, not back and forth, but in disclosure through Crown regulated disclosure from the police service into the Crown. So it'll be using the same encrypted methods of moving the information forward.
And we're getting closer to wrapping up tonight, and thank you so much for everyone who's been sending in questions. Another question here, will the officer have the camera on all the time, and are they allowed to turn it off and on whenever they wish?
Sure. So no, they will not have the camera on all of the time. They are not allowed to just turn it on and off whenever they wish. There are pieces in the procedure that I did mention earlier that govern when an officer can turn it on, what they're allowed to record and what they're not allowed to record. It also governs when they can stop a video in the middle of recording. And it just is really the procedure that they're required to follow. So we know that part of what the chief has been talking about, a huge part of bringing the video technology is to develop transparency and trust. So ensuring that we have clear guidelines when the officers can and cannot turn their videos on and off, and what they can and cannot record are very important to us. We've also followed the guidelines from the Privacy Commission in developing our procedures that have allowed us to be very specific about when that can happen.
And we do have a question from Twitter. Superintendent, I'll bring you and the chief in on this one. Can you comment on quality control measures you have in place for the pilot? For example, validating that recordings are happening when intended and detecting unintentional muting.
I can speak to that if you wish, Chief, and that really is governed through our procedure. So we have a big piece, there's a large role that our supervisors play in the body-worn and in-car video, and that is that they're required, like I said, monthly to review footage from every single officer under their team or within their team every single month. They're looking for, part of what they're looking for are all the officers following procedures for body-worn and in-car video, but also are they following procedures in general for any type of incident that they're responding to. And the officers themselves will be held accountable if they're not following that through the supervision. It's built in.
Great, thank you very much. So I think we have time for one more question if there's any outstanding questions before we wrap up here. And it looks like that might be it for tonight. So we just want to thank everyone for coming out to our first Community Education Engagement Night. Thank you, Superintendent Morris and Chief Larkin. We want to, again, thank you all for joining us and for your insightful comments and questions. If you did not get to your question this evening, please email us at www.modernization@wrps.on.ca, and we will get back to you as soon as possible. To learn more about the pilot project or to take part in the community survey, please visit www.wrps.on.ca.